So if everybody could please help me welcome Alexis Ohanian.
Hey everybody. Whoa, 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 whoa. Really? I heard some trash talking coming from Ohio about you guys on the Twitter. I know, but I know you won't disappoint. I have to confess, I was at a football match yesterday. Was yelling a lot. My Skins won over the Bears, so I'm happy about that. Thank you. I can't take any credit, but it looks like Robert's knee is a little bit better and put him at 90%. And because I went to the University of Virginia, I have no idea what it's like to root for a real college football team. So I was really excited to be able to come here and just be jealous, basically. You have to excuse my voice. I'm drinking tea, and I'm not going to let this stop me, because this is the start of the Without Their Permission epic bus tour. All right, we're going to 75 universities across the country and Canada. Our friendly hat to the north. And I am excited because this is the tour I wish I had when I was an undergrad at the University of Virginia. And the synopsis of this, the TLDR, is what's behind me right here. Don't wait for permission to be awesome. Now, chances are in this audience right now, a number of you have amazing projects and things you are working on that you are proud of. Any, by show of hands, any working on something really cool right now that you're really proud of? Is there any? Okay, great. One of the first hands I saw go up was you. Would you be willing to come up here and just take a minute to pitch it to a bunch of your fellow Wolverines? Can we give them a round of applause? Get on up there. This is your elevator pitch. I'm going to drink some tea and patiently listen to you. So please, pitch the Lord.
Thank you. So my name is UMich. I actually graduated in 2011. I went to Chicago, quit my job to move back to Ann Arbor to start my startup. It's called MyFab5, and what we're trying to do is redefine the restaurant review. So if you've ever used Yelp, you search for pizza in Ann Arbor, you'll see a list of places between 3.8 stars and like 4.5 stars. But which place is good for deep dish or thin crust or cheesy bread? You got to click the business, read a bunch of reviews, and you go to the next one and on forth. MyFab5 takes that pain away. On MyFab5, instead of rating or reviewing, people rank up to 5 of their favorite places in any food-related category. So it could be pizza, cheesy bread, deep dish pizza, thin crust pizza. So if you search for pizza on MyFab5, not only will we show you the top pizza places, we'll also show you the other categories that each place is great for, saving you time and helping you make decisions quickly and confidently.
How about it? Because this proves a point that I want to make tonight. One more round of applause, because it feels good. All right? Thank you for demonstrating a point that was demonstrated to me while I was an undergrad, and that is this. Every single one of us has ambitions. We have things we want to do to make the world suck less. We have things that we want to share. We have ideas that we care about. And unless you're willing to actually raise your hand and do something a little scary, a little different, a little awkward, those great ideas will never leave your brains. So be willing to put your hand up. Be willing to put yourself into an uncomfortable place. And that was not a plant, right? Scout's honor, it was not a plant. But that did work out pretty well, didn't it? All right? I guess the schooling all right here in Michigan, all right? And I'm gonna let you know, UVA is always, it's funny, as a fellow public university, UVA is always talking smack about Michigan, because I feel like we're still living in y'all's shadow. So if you don't mind slacking for just a little bit, I'd really appreciate that. But no, that was amazing. All right, guys, I got 25 minutes that I want to give you everything locked up in here. I think we can do this, right? I started a number of companies, all of which have cute mascots, because I love mascots. What's not to like? It's not required. It's not at all, but it's a way for users to care about your brand, to care about what you've built a little more, because it's, you know, smiling at you. And frankly, it's the one thing a non-technical founder can do before you've actually built something, so that's what I did. And look, mascots are you know, pretty popular, right? Plenty of major institutions use them as a way to build spirit, I am told. I was actually a little disappointed, because is it just me, or is it a little interesting that the Wolverine has the same color scheme. Is that a little, obviously you had the brown period, we all know that. But still, I just think it's interesting, right? But it's impressive, although I don't think there are actually any Wolverines in Ann Arbor. Are there? No. Proud of yourselves, guys? Really? You could probably steal a couple from Canada, maybe, but whatever, so it goes. Now, the reason why I wrote this book, the reason I'm doing this tour, the reason I have a career is because this man with a mustache is wrong. It's a great piece of facial hair. I'm growing a tour beard, actually. I'm pretty proud of it, just getting started. And I applaud Tom Friedman's mustache. But his thesis, the world is flat, is wrong. We've known that. I think ancient Greeks knew that. He was trying to prove a point, and he was close. He was close, but the real world-changing phenomenon is that the World Wide Web is flat, as depicted here with my bread pig, illustrating the fact that it is both the world's largest stage and library in one, and it is accessible to any one of us with an internet connection and some kind of computing device. And that is really, really powerful. Incredibly powerful. You know what kind of power I'm talking about? This is also an interesting litmus test, I realized. Depending on the age of the audience, some people will not understand this reference, and it breaks my heart. But the point is, the power glove actually it's kind of a terrible metaphor because it actually sucked as a peripheral. But the point is, this is really powerful. And I know most of the time, all of us fellow millennials, we hear a lot of interesting things, right? We're called lots of things. Lazy, selfish, narcissistic. Actually, can I take a selfie real quick? Just real quick now. We're called a lot of things. And you know, frankly, a lot of those conventions that we were raised up on have turned out to be not exactly as robust and strong as we were led to believe. What that means, though, is that we have no excuse but to be a little unconventional. And because so many of us were, in fact, at least in my case, raised on the internet, we have a tremendous advantage. A real advantage that actually Bain does a great job kind of paraphrasing. And that is the simple fact that while all of the incumbents, while all of the institutions are quickly trying, well, not all of them quickly, are all scrambling to try and figure out how they'll adapt to this new connected world, this new internet, they still have merely adopted it. They're still trying to adopt it. We were born in it, and we were molded by it. And by its own definition, the internet is this free-flowing, untamed, wild platform of ideas that we are actually rather native to. And that's a big deal. We're just starting to see how big of a deal that is, right? Because so many of the incumbents remind us of this well-intentioned grandma. She just wants to use the Netflix. There's nothing wrong with that. It's great. It's so much better than all of the traditional ways to consume entertainment. But still, it's the Netflix, right? It seems subtle, but it's a huge, huge difference. And if we can imagine the new internet as this new frontier, if we got all Lewis and Clark on this, and I will gladly be your second Julia, we will imagine a world that we're not only discovering, but also what we are creating, right? Because if we can actually build these platforms on the internet, if we can actually build things in code, we're not just discovering new territory, we are creating it under our feet as we walk. Now here's where it gets real. How many of you write code or are learning to write code right now? Put your hands up. Okay? Every one of you who put your hands up, you all have the most valuable skill of this century. And everyone else, take note, okay? This is, I cannot understate how valuable this is, right? Because if we really believe the internet is changing anything, if we really believe what Mark Andreessen, successful venture capitalist and founder of Netscape, said about software eating the world, what do you want to be? Do you want to be merely someone who is exploring it and building on it, or do you also want to be someone who is actually creating it? Now that's not to say that the internet isn't helping people be awesome who are not themselves developers. That's really the reason why I wrote the book not entirely about my own entrepreneurial stories, but about the stories of people who were being entrepreneurial. Now, chances are, you all have heard this quote before. It's actually one of my favorite quotes. It's from one of the greatest thinkers of our age, everyone. Every single person thinks they have a great idea, don't we? No one ever says, like, hold on. You just 5 minutes, I'm going to tell you the worst idea I've ever had. It's going to be amazing. You're going to wonder how dumb I am when I tell you this idea, right? No, we all have great ideas, but that's okay. That's good. We should feel great about our ideas. But we need to remember that just a great idea It is worthless. No matter how much Justin Timberlake you may add to that equation, I don't care what the social network taught us, none of that stuff matters until you can actually build it, until you can actually take those great ideas and actually do something with them. And it doesn't just have to be a startup. It could be your first Kickstarter campaign to get that first art project off the ground. It could be that first social media campaign to get word out about that cause that you care about. It could be nearly anything, but it requires taking that first step. And oftentimes, no one gets to even there. And that makes me sad. It makes me feel like this statue. Side note, I love thinking about the ancient sculptor, or the sculptor actually, who was working on this thing, never expecting that many, many centuries later, some hipster would be giving a talk, and this would be referencing a facepalm meme on the internet. It's amazing. But look, the reality is we have been in institutions of learning, and clearly y'all have been doing pretty well to get here, right? And I'm not pandering, I'm just keeping it real, all right? You've all done pretty well. You've passed the right tests. You've made it to the next grade. You have basically feared failure and avoided it for the last 18 to 20 something years. And that is awesome. That is great. The reality is, most of life after this is going to be full of lots of failures. In fact, the reality is most of life is trying things you're not necessarily great at and realizing, you know, actually I have no idea what I'm doing, but that's okay, I'm going to figure it out. And we are so trained to fear failure that one of the things I want all of you to take advantage of, especially if you're here as undergrads or grads, if you're students, you have the freedom to do stuff and to try stuff, to accept that failure is an option. You can do stuff and no one will be looking. You will have to try so hard just to get people to care about the things that you are making. Please take those chances to make stuff, to get stuff done, to do stuff. And let me tell you, that by the time you see these speakers on stage, whether it's me or Jeff or anyone else, you're never going to get to hear about the epic fails, right? Because no one talks about those. Everyone talks about the success. It makes it look like this thing happens overnight, and it does not. So let's share some stories of fail. So when I was an undergrad at UMich, my best friend, Steve Huffman, was always telling me about how he hated waiting in lines. And I understood his pain. We were in Charlottesville, Virginia, so it's not like the lines were ever that long. But we wanted our food, and we didn't have to wait for it. And because of that, and because I very fortunately walked out of an LSAT prep class, I was going to be a lawyer. I know. I would have been a lawyer had it not been for something called Waffle House. If there's any Waffle House fans out there, it changed my life. Really, it literally changed my life. I walked out of an LSAT prep course, walked into a Waffle House, decided I didn't really want to be a lawyer, and instead I wanted to hopefully live like a college student for as long as I could, working on some cool business idea. And so I went back to that friend of mine, Steve, who hated waiting in lines. And I was like, Steve, dude, we gotta build something around this. And he was like, yeah, I've been thinking, we all have these nifty mobile phones on us. Like, what if we could just sort of text in an order? This is 2005, right? Remember, there were no smartphones. Like, the smartest phone was a Trio, that stylus. So we were like, we can figure out a way to make this work. We'll never have to wait in line again because when we're 5 blocks away from the Starbucks, we just place the order instead of waiting for it. So here's your Frappuccino, sir. Carry on. It's a great idea. We think this can be amazing. We have a great name. It's going to be called My Mobile Menu. Or Yeah? Not terrible? And so we knew, all right, we can do this. We can absolutely do this. And so we heard of this guy named Paul Graham giving a talk in Boston during our senior year spring break. And we thought, senior year spring break, we need to go to Boston. We don't need to go to a beach. There's too much screen glare. The internet usually sucks. We'll go to Boston, right? And we heard, we know what I'm talking about. And so we went up to Boston, heard Paul give his talk, met with him afterwards, spent maybe 45 minutes with him getting coffee, pitched him on this idea for and he said, not terrible. He was like, you got a pretty good shot. I mean, it's still terrible odds. You should give it a go. And so we were thrilled, right? Paul Graham, this person who Steve idolized and who we'd come all the way up to meet, said we didn't have a terrible idea. And so a few weeks later, we heard about Y Combinator, and it had just started accepting applications, so we applied. We got accepted for interviews, and we went up to Boston to basically bask in our glory and get the money from them, because obviously we were going to get an YC, right? Paul already liked our idea. So we go up there, we pitch, and they rejected us. It was awkward, because we figured, we had a pretty good shot, right? They rejected us. So we got drunk, which is the thing to do, I suppose, upon meeting rejection. Remember, I mean, we got trophies for everything, right? Like, I've got 7 participation trophies for basketball camp, and I can still barely dribble with my left hand, right? It is only then when we confronted the fact that we sucked, we were rejected from this thing we so badly wanted, that we decided, no, forget it, we're going to prove them wrong. We're going to make this amazing company. It's not giving me a lot of confidence when you guys laugh. You know what I'm saying? We're going to make this amazing company. I was going to take over the world, and we're going to prove them so, so wrong. And then, the next morning, hungover, on the long train back to Virginia, Paul called back, and he said, you know what? We don't like your idea. It's still bad. It's still too early. There's no easy way to get this app on people's phones. Restaurants are still too slow with technology. But we like you. And if you two are willing to kill this company, change your idea after working on it for about the last year, we had business cards and everything, we'll let you in the program. And it took us about 5 seconds. And we said, all right, what about what? I don't know what you're talking about. No, terrible name. Hated it. Always hated it. Awful. Didn't think of that. So we showed up at Y Combinator. This is the first photo of me and Steve at YC. Oh, thank you guys. It's like, what happened? What happened? If you've seen photos of Steve recently, you know that he has not aged because he is a vampire. Just like that, just like Keanu Reeves. We had no business starting the company, but we met with Paul for about an hour and he said, what are your problems? Build something on the web, don't build something on mobile. Solve your own problem. What do you guys do every day? And Steve read Slashdot and I read a bunch of news websites. And he said, all right, are you happy with how you find out what's new online? We said, no, not really. It could be better. He said, okay, make that. Work on that. And we're like, oh, that's really? And he's like, no. Build the front page of the internet. And Steve and I look at each other like, really? We haven't even graduated from college yet. This dude's telling us to build the front page of the internet? Yeah, we got it. Yeah, it's gonna have a great name. It's gonna be amazing. And so we started working on it. And it makes things very clear. When we moved up there in June, so we graduated just a few months ago, Bob, we go up there, starting in June. To be clear, we still had no fucking idea what we were doing. And this is something that I cannot stress enough. In fact, if anyone gets up in front of you and acts like they really know everything, like they really know what they're doing, they really are totally sure that everything they do, they got it down pat, they're either lying, delusional, or just not trying hard enough. All right, I still feel like I don't know what I'm doing. 150 stop bus tour? Okay, sure, great idea. No fucking clue. Everything. Every startup, every endeavor, everything you want to do that has any bit of innovation or relevance is going to be in a perpetual state of uncertainty. All startups are perpetually running out of business to some extent, right? And there's always some drama, there's always some reason not to do it. But it's okay. Don't let embarrassment stop you. And I'll show you something else that I didn't until very recently show anyone. This is the first version of Reddit. Literally, I took this screenshot as soon as we launched. You'll notice 2 things. Actually, not 3 things. 1, the site is ugly. Now, some people would argue it hasn't gotten much better looking. And I know that the snarky people are out there, and that's fine. Point taken. The other thing you'll notice is actually, fun fact, the first submission ever was my submission of the Downing Street memo. And third, you'll notice from my -1 karma score that Steve is a jerk. It was only us. I knew he did that. Such a jerk. But this is the first version. This was after 3 weeks. 3 weeks in, we got an email from Paul Graham, the head of Y Combinator, who said, you guys haven't launched yet. It's been 3 weeks. And that means one of 2 things. Either you were trying too hard to make it perfect, or you're incompetent. And either way, you are hosed. And we took that again, remember, I'm looking at all my participation trophies and I'm like, how dare he say we might be incompetent? But look, it was a kick in the butt. It was a force for us to actually get something online, actually get something made. Launch stuff, okay? Ship. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's the first photograph you started on your photo blog. I don't care if it is a blog post of a serialized novel you're writing every other Tuesday. Like, I don't care. Just start. Now, I wanted to field some questions from you all using the U of M subreddit, which I hope you all subscribe to if you're not already subscribers. U of M Reddit asked, look, and Danielle is getting a shout out, as promised. Yes! Success! I've made one student's day. Marvelous. It was all worth it. So, biggest mistake. I gave you a pretty good one, but I want to talk about some lessons and other things learned. So let's go on story time. This was the debut of our chief competitor, Dig. Some interesting things to note about this. This is a clip from YouTube. I won't play it because that's just lame. You don't need to hear it. Kevin Rose was a TV celebrity with a following on Tech TV. 6 months before we launched Reddit, he went on his TV show and announced a new website. He didn't mention it, but he announced a new website called Dig. And it sent a nice army of traffic. It generated some press. He had friends in Silicon Valley, so he was able to raise funding pretty easily. And sure enough, about 2 weeks after we launched Reddit, I finally learned that we had competitors. You could call it a terrible job that I did doing competitive analysis, and that's fine, because it was a pretty terrible job that I missed this. But I found the email that I first sent to Steve and Paul when I learned about Dig, and the subject line said, "Meet the enemy," and the body said, "TikTok." And I'm not gonna lie, I spent way too much time thinking about them than I should have. Now, they were the established name. They were in Silicon Valley. Right, did I mention we were just in Somerville, Massachusetts? We were in a suburb of Cambridge, which is a suburb of Boston, starting this thing in a tiny little 2-bedroom apartment, right? And they were a Silicon Valley company started by a TV celebrity. And it was a little daunting, right? We just graduated from college, and now we have this to deal with. And Paul gave some incredible advice, and he said, you just need to stop caring. Do not care about your competition because they will never beat you. You will beat yourself, or they will beat themselves before they ever beat you. And I had to remind myself of this regularly because they keep getting more press, they keep getting more attention. For the 16 months that Reddit existed as an independent entity before we were acquired by Condé Nast, TechCrunch, does everyone know what TechCrunch is? Yes. Yeah. TechCrunch wrote about Reddit 0 times. Not once did they ever mention us until the day we were acquired. We fought desperately to get anyone to care about Reddit. It took 6 months for any noteworthy publication to write about it, and it was The Guardian. The British Guardian was the first publication to write about Reddit. That wasn't just like Fred's WordPress blog, okay? And that was great. I love Fred for doing that. But at the top of mind was, here is this looming threat, and it's in Silicon Valley, right? Mysterious Silicon Valley where like angel investments are made out of unicorns or something. I don't know. It's all a myth. It's all malarkey. You don't need to fear this. You don't need to be threatened by it. And most people who saw Dig copied them, replicated them. And the reason they are all now obsolete is because none of them were actually trying to do something innovative. None of them were trying to do something that's actually themselves. And so we had to remember, first and foremost, stop caring about them. And then, of course, there's the fun that happens when you get to meet large companies as a startup. Google was actually really interested in us. About 5 months after we launched, Steve and I went to San Francisco and met with them. And it was amazing because we had just left college and now here we were in the Googleplex and everyone's getting free candy. Like, these things were amazing to us. And they said, we actually really like what you're doing. And we actually think this is really cool. And we'd be curious to know what happened if we put Reddit comments on YouTube. We're curious to know what would happen if you guys would work here. Like, we talked about maybe an acquisition. So that meeting went really, really, really well. And needless to say, we did turn them down. Mostly because we thought this could be motivation. This was a potential for an amazing signing bonus. But you know, we just graduated from college a few months ago. Like, we must be onto something if Google likes us. So we went to Yahoo. We felt great. Our spirits went up so high. Yahoo had just gone through this amazing new rebranding, and they were so proud of it. Everything was purple. It was amazing. And so we went, and we had a meeting that we thought was going to go at least as well as Google's. And this executive sat us down, and we pitched him. And he interrupted us a little ways into it. He said, hold on. How much traffic does Reddit have anyway? And I looked at Steve, and Steve looked at me, and we just kind of sort of shrugged and said, listen, we just launched. We only have a few thousand active users a day, but it's growing week over week. Like, the signs are all really positive. This executive just cuts us off, and he's like, you guys are a rounding error compared to Yahoo. Why are you even here? And yeah, right? And I'm always tempted to yell that because Yahoo is the exclamation point at the end. But I'm told we don't have to. He just said it just like that. And Steve and I looked at each other and were like, because you invited us? Like, that's why we're here, because you wanted to make fun of us? I don't know. Needless to say, that meeting went pretty poorly. So we left and went back to Somerville, and I put something up on my wall. And I really, this really was the high point of my wall of negative reinforcement, because I wrote, "You are a rounding error," on my wall next to my desk. And I started collecting negative feedback from people on blogs who said we were idiots. On people on, it wasn't Twitter back then, people in comments who said we were just ripping off Dig and we were hosts. And I just started building this wonderful wall of negative reinforcement, just so I could know exactly who I was going to be proving wrong every morning. And I want you to know, look, there are going to be haters. You probably have all experienced haters at some point in your life. Eat them for breakfast. Have them with some almond milk and maybe a chicken sausage, if that's your jam. That's what I like. I like that for breakfast. It makes me feel healthy because it's sausage, but it's chicken. Now, we learned from this, all right? And one of the best lessons we could have learned was start a company that has revenue from day one. And so this is why Steve was so excited about Hitmonk, because we built a travel search website people liked. Whenever they booked a flight, we would get a percentage. However, you're not getting a percentage unless you get a deal. You're not getting a deal unless you convince some incumbent airline or online travel agency to do business with an upstart with a silly name and a cute mascot, but still kind of ridiculous name. And so we had to figure out how to use this weakness that was a bunch of fresh-faced youngsters as a strength. So I got a fun one for you. So Adam Goldstein was our CEO and ran all the biz dev efforts. Had just graduated. And he was the epitome of like the fresh-faced kid, right? Plucky startup founder. And he was trying to do business with a bunch of middle-aged execs who were really skeptical of us just to begin with, right? Some Bay Area startup. And so we developed this great hack, which I've seen many folks do since, which is he conducted all this business primarily through the phone and through email, up until the moment when he actually had to meet the decision makers. What this did was it built a reputation for him and the impression of him that he was a really talented, awesome, smart person who would just be judged by the words coming out of his mouth and not by how he looked. And so we started scheduling these meetings in Chicago where a lot of these online travel agencies were based, a lot of these airlines were based, where he would just fly into Chicago and just be there and then bang out a quick email on his mobile device saying, "Hey, so-and-so decision maker, I'm in town for just a couple hours. I got some spare time for a coffee if you can make it." And he would do this from time to time until eventually he got that meeting. And he shows up. And imagine that middle-aged exec's surprise when he sees Adam walk in. And he goes, "Whoa, hold on. I expected you to, well, that's not right." And so all of a sudden, his youthful appearance actually became a strength. Because this person who he had perceived as being experienced and established just turned out to be younger. And so, whoa, now he looks like some kind of prodigy. You can use these basic tactics to overcome those unfortunate realities of the world where you need to do business with the incumbents. You can get on your suit when you need to, because I know one of the huge advantages of starting a company, right, is wearing sandals or shorts or whatever you want to wear, just depending on the weather. But the thing you can never forget is that you have to be better than this. This is the enemy, right? This is a great Paul Graham quote about the enemy being the back button. You have to be better than it, because competing for attention on a flat internet is really hard because of this. There are lots of cat photos, but you have to be better than it. This happens to be my cat, and I love her, and so I love showing her off. But like this is a perfect example of the reality of the attention world we live in. You have to be that good. You have to be making something people really want. That is the motto of YC, and it doesn't just apply to startups, it applies to everything. And you have to, like I said earlier, be willing to accept failure as a part of doing anything. It's an undeniable reality of trying anything, okay? I want to give you a very specific story that I think just embodies the soul, not just for startups, but for just passion. All right, there was a University of Georgia failout. Totally failed out of Georgia. He was bouncing around trying to find jobs. Sort of moving around. He told his friends and family, look, none of this is working. He briefly did finance for a minute and then realized he had a soul. So he kind of bounced around some more. And then he decided, you know what? I'm going to move to New York. And his friends are like, really? You're going to the most expensive city in the United States? You don't even have a job? And he's like, no. I got to figure it out. I'm going to take photos. And they're like, really? Really? You don't even have a camera. How are you gonna, you have no business taking photos of people and you're just trying to make a living off of that? You are crazy. And he said, maybe, but I really want to do this. So he started a blog, a little site called Tumblr. And, no, he started a blog on a little site called Tumblr. Sorry, this is not David Carr. Wouldn't that be such a twist? No. Trust me, it's still simmering. So he starts this site and he starts taking photos. And the first photos suck, right? If you remember anything from Adventure Time, remember that sucking is the first step to being sort of good at something, right? It's a great quote. And it's true because he sucked at first, but he got better. And he forced himself to publish new content every day and get better and better and better. And he started captioning these photos with stories, these synopses from the people he would meet. And all of a sudden, 4 years later, he's Humans of New York. Yeah, there it is. Even better payoff than David Carr, I think, right? So here he is, Brandon Stanton, University of Georgia failout. Dude has a book that debuted at the #1 bestseller because he's a stone cold baller who had no business starting Humans of New York. He had no business becoming now arguably the most viewed photographer, at least in the country, possibly in the planet. Every day, millions of people are moved by his images. And a few years ago, he was a nobody failout from the University of Georgia who just moved to New York with a camera he borrowed from a friend and no experience whatsoever. Now that's an outlier, and that's an amazing example, but I want you to know that this stuff is happening. And yes, I do say programming, and I say this as a non-technical founder, is the skill of the century. And you should all give it a go, because you can start learning it right now. In fact, those of you with laptops out, I'm disappointed more if you don't have your laptops out, guys. But you could start learning right now, right? You can sign up for Code Academy. I hear you guys are a pretty good engineering school here. You can take a few classes. The point is, this stuff is happening whether you want to be a professional photographer or whether you want to build the next Tumblr. It's happening. And so boom, we have Humans of New York. We have someone who is reaching their maximum potential for awesome. That's the best side of the internet. That's the thing that I think the internet can enable in a way that we've never seen before. And that makes me really happy. It makes me as happy as this cat. Oh, you think it's cuter than my cat? Like my cat does not photograph well, nor does she smile like that. But that's how I feel, okay? It is letting people across disciplines reach that maximum potential of awesome, and that is great. Because it's letting webcomic artists like Zach Wiener create his, interesting style of humor without worrying about upsetting anyone with Sunday comics. Like really, could you imagine this next to Family Circus? No, because Family Circus is dumb. And this is actually funny, right? This is someone who started a website and started posting, right? We've seen this happen time and time again, whether it's XKCD, Dinosaur Comics, Saturday Morning Breakfast Show, Cyanide and Happiness. Do you remember comics used to be delivered in a newspaper? Okay, so news used to come. There was like a dead tree, it would be pulsed, and it would printed, it would smear. Right? There used to be someone who decided this is worthy, this is not, this is worthy, this is not, right? Gary Larson was a trip from San Francisco away from never being a comic because his comic, the original one, was discontinued while he was on vacation, and he very fortunately signed up with the Chronicle so that when he got back and found out his comic was discontinued, he did not have to go back to work at the ASPCA, and instead we have the Far Side. But there are far more people who never took that fortuitous vacation and we never got to benefit from, but now we can. And it's not just for this new generation. Hopefully many of you heard the story of Lester Chambers that went viral about 1.5 years ago because he was basically flat out robbed by the music industry. I know it's shocking, the music industry taking advantage of artists. I am shocked, right? I never expected it. And unfortunately he was the victim of some very bad deals. And so he posted this photo about his gold records and how he had never misspent his money, he just never got paid. And so we worked with him to fund a Kickstarter campaign, which raised over $60,000. And it was the first album Lester Chambers ever had that he actually owned. Zach Anner. Oh, Zach. Zach is a comedian who went viral when he put out a show trailer, a show pitch for the OWN network. Now, Zach has cerebral palsy, which in his trailer, he very quickly admits is the sexiest of the palsies. Zach is not a conventional host. He is not a conventional travel show host. But why? Simply because no one ever thought that this could be conventional, right? That's a pretty stupid reason. And so, thanks to the internet, he was discovered. Thanks to the internet, he's been able to build a following and an audience. He did an amazing show that I was very proud to play a small part in called Riding a Shotgun, where he traveled across the country. And now he has a show with Rainn Wilson's outfit, Soul Pancake, called Have a Little Faith. And it's one of the best series online right now, so you should all watch it. But again, this isn't just for business, this isn't just for arts, this isn't just for entertainment, this is for philanthropy too. DonorsChoose.org was started in 2001 by a public school teacher in the Bronx, and today millions of dollars flow directly from individuals like you and me, directly to public school classrooms who need the funding the most. All a public school teacher has to do is get online and say, hey, I need $400 for an iPad in my classroom. Hey, I need $50 for textbooks. I need fill in the blank. Every dollar goes to where it should. This is a platform that enables people like Debbie Guardino to go to Joplin after a tornado devastated it and raise $500,000. Now this is a woman who already has a full-time job as a teacher, but she also has a Twitter account. She also has a Facebook account. And through those tools, those freely available tools, this woman is able to achieve her maximum levels of awesome as a philanthropist. $500,000 does not happen without a connected internet unless you get a ton of very benevolent feeling gatekeepers. And that's really, really something. Now I have one more, and I'm not going to ask you to read this. This is a question about social justice.
Answer the child porn question.
I will answer the child porn question when the Q&A happens. These were the top 1 questions. Do you think they're yes? Right. So it's a question about slacktivism. Coney 2012 is a total cluster, right? Absolute disaster. But I'm very, very quick to point out that slacktivism is, I think, unfairly derided. All right? When we look at something like an upvote, we look at something like a like or retweet, and it's easy to say that's not activism. That's because it's not activism. But any great social change has happened because reasonable people were able to simply say, you know what, I'm okay with that. We never had an easy way, though, to do that at scale. Right? Great social change happened because people at dinner tables are like, you know what, actually I feel this way. Or at water coolers, they're like, actually I kind of feel this way. And enough people realize enough other people feel this way, and change happens. So whilst upvoting, while retweeting, while liking is not in itself activism, it is a way to, at scale, say how you honestly feel about something. And that is valuable. It's valuable especially as much as it encourages us to do stuff. We certainly saw this with the Silva Pippa fight, which took a bunch of people, millions of people all over the country, who picked up phones and actually defeated $94 million in lobbying just by virtue of caring enough to pick up that phone and get activated. And that was entirely grassroots. That was entirely online. And so there are examples here where this can happen. And so as this world changes, I don't know where it's headed. I don't pretend to know where it is all headed. But these traditional gatekeepers continue to lose the control that they used to have. And what that means for so many of us with great ideas is the ability to do them, and to do them without permission. And that's pretty cool. I don't speak French, but I do think, actually I have no reason to believe that this is the case, but I do believe that entrepreneurship should be perceived as not something that is on this pedestal, that is only something that founders can do or certain people can do, but something that we all do. We are all behaving entrepreneurially when we have ideas and do them. And that's the thing that I want to express. And that's the thing I want so many of you to take away from this. Because there isn't anything different here. The reason I'm bringing Jeff on stage, an alum, a fellow Wolverine, is because he was in this, actually not literally in this auditorium, but he was a part of this student body. And simply by virtue of this wonderful internet, has been able to do the things that he has done. And, you know, I think we can all admit, oh, that worked out, nice. We still really don't know what we're doing, but we're figuring it out. We're all figuring it out. Because this whole platform, everything, is still evolving. And I want to make sure we get it right. I want to make sure the internet lives up to its fullest potential. That's why, of course, we're going all over. Those aren't to scale, by the way. No one would be able to read that except for giants. And I also want to let you all know that I'm hoping to build a much broader movement. Because I know so many of you have ideas, whether you want to do them in the arts, in music, in philanthropy, in activism, or in business. And I want to build a community of people all over this country who are excited about living up to their maximum potentials for awesome. So I want to provide a bunch of resources and a place where we can do all that. But in the meantime, I want to welcome a Wolverine onto the stage. I hope you guys are ready to clap. Jeff, come on up here.
Where you at?
I'm going to keep nursing my teeth. All right. So first and foremost,
he wasn't joking. I have literally never been in this auditorium.
Was it? Wait. Was there just nothing here that interested you?
I don't think they would have allowed me in. I don't know. I feel really good to be here, though. How y'all doing?
All right. So I want to get to literati, but I want to take this back to early days when you were at school here. What was the most valuable thing you took away from your time here at the University of Michigan?
Then or now?
Oh, let's do that. And then now.
Then probably had nothing to do with what I'm doing now. And certainly, at least at the time, I didn't realize I'd be learning any lessons that would benefit my career. And I say that with all sincerity and a little bit of embarrassment. I was about hanging out with my friends. I did okay, but I certainly didn't take advantage of the resources that were here. And I regret that to an extent. Like I wouldn't trade the 4 years I had for anything. But now, I think that what this place offers is just an enormous amount of support. No matter if it's coming from professors or counselors or your fellow students or friends. And I think that at the time it was subconscious to me, but now I'm starting to realize just how valuable all that was.
Do you think, if you were an undergrad right now, knowing everything you know, what is that one piece of advice you want to make sure was in every one of their heads?
I think you said it. It's don't be afraid to fail. It's really hard to not be afraid to fail. Because like you said, we are all taught to fail. But making mistakes is okay. It's more than okay, because in order to get somewhere, oftentimes you have to make many mistakes.
So let's talk about your entrepreneurial journey. So you started out also avoiding law school.
Yeah, you and I have a lot in common.
Well played.
I also have cats.
How many cats do you have? It's going there.
I have 2, which is really weird because I grew up with 5 dogs. My wife had 2 cats, and I was like, what the? But yeah.
Well, really fun, man. I think it brings, I like having a feline presence in my apartment. That's nice.
And there's a whole Wolverine tie-in.
Having a pet Wolverine, though, would probably not be safe.
Probably.
Not a good idea. Don't do that. Okay, but wait, so starting at the age of 2, right?
Yeah, I did, but it took me, I won't go back too far, but it took me 5 years after graduating to get into a career. By the way, I have no idea what that means. And if any of you right now have no idea what you want to do after you leave here, that's exactly how I felt. But when I graduated, I applied to law school because that's what you do when you have no idea what you want to do. And I was telling you earlier that I had an uncle who was a big name on the door, so he could open up all these law firms for me. So I'm from Philadelphia originally, but I moved out to San Francisco, and I kept interviewing with all these people, and everything I heard, I hated. So I got out before I ever got in, and I started bartending and teaching little kids how to play soccer, because I played here for a little bit, and I bartended here. And that's what I knew how to do. And then I met some guy who had just come back from 3 months in Costa Rica. And I was like, you could do that? You could just go away? Me going away growing up was like Mexico with your family. And so I traveled around the world for a year with a backpack on, which is, without question, wedding and marriage and children aside, probably the most valuable thing I've ever done with my life. I would encourage all of you to travel in any way, shape, or form.
Wait, real quick, how many of y'all have been abroad? Great. Oh, that gives me so much hope. Okay, good.
By the way, all of you who are raising your hands, is that a semester abroad?
Everyone just shout it.
I didn't want to give up a semester here. I was having so much fun, like the idea of going abroad felt really good, sounded really good, but I didn't want to leave. So anyway, I did that, and I discovered this passion for writing and for story. And I came back and started a career in advertising as a writer for an agency called Shy of Day. I knew nothing. That's another thing in common. I knew nothing many times. In fact, on the interview, I called it She of Day, and it was embarrassing. But I started working there, and I was so low that I wasn't even on the totem pole. You know, I was fetching coffees and turkey sandwiches, but it didn't matter because I was surrounded by people who were really passionate about the craft, and they really cared. So I bartended at night to make ends meet, while I just hoped and prayed that somebody would give me a little assignment. Yeah. And then I got laid off.
And that seems like kind of a shitty thing, right? Like, how fortuitous was it for you though?
So not only was it a shitty thing, but when I got laid off, my creative director called me my partner's name.
What? During the process?
During the process. So I was like, so wait, you're like, who are you laying off? So this was the dot-com bubble bursting, so it's 2002. And if any of you happen to be in the Bay Area at that point, it was like a mass exodus out of town. It was weird. Like traffic patterns shifted and billboards became vacant, and it was nuts. But during that time, I started my first company, which was called Raz. And with one other guy, also a fellow Michigan alum. There were a lot of Michigan people in San Francisco, and we all had a softball team. So Raz was, we were good. Raz was pre-iOS, pre-Android, and the idea was, so ringtones were huge. They were like a $4 billion industry. Do you guys remember ringback tones by any chance? So they were starting to become popular, so we were like, well, what if you could put music and stuff on the inside of your phone call? So my partner Jeff turned to me and he was like, you mean like farting in your phone? And I was like, exactly. And so we built this technology that allowed people to interject audio content, movie lines, sound effects, background music, into the live voice channel, audible to both caller and receiver. And so the handset makers were thrilled because it was a differentiator for them. The carriers were like, what do you mean you're piping into this private channel? We don't quite understand it, we don't really like it. And the content providers and all the brands, mostly in Hollywood, were thrilled because they saw it as more revenue for getting their characters out. We raised venture capital, ran that company for about 6 years, and then I had a couple of pretty crazy tragedies happen in my life. And sort of got a self-pivot. It was pretty nuts.
And well, what fascinated me about Literati was, and that's Litterati, it was inspired by your daughter?
It was.
And it somehow involves these cats again.
It does.
This is a reason to have cats, people.
So I live in the Oakland Hills, and my daughter and son and I were taking a walk in the woods. They're 5 and 3 now, they were 4 and 2 at the time, but my daughter Tali noticed that somebody had thrown a plastic tub of cat litter, those tidy cat, yellow, highlighter color plastic tubs, into the creek. And she knows this product because we used it at home. So she looks at me and she says, Daddy, that doesn't go there. Just like that. And that was a real eye-opening moment for me. And it reminded me of when I was a kid. I used to go to overnight camp in upstate New York, at a place called Grant Lake Camp. And on the morning visiting day, before they let our parents come battling through the gates, our director would say, all right, everybody, I want you to all go out and pick up 5 pieces of trash. So now you had 100 or 200 kids, each picking up 5 pieces, and within a few minutes, we had a much cleaner camp. So I thought, well, why couldn't we apply that exact same crowdsourced behavior to the whole planet? And that was why I started with it.
Well, I remember police lines from Boy Scouts, and they were really, really effective at cleaning up a bunch of garbage. You know, how do you though? You know, you've got a troop leader or some organizer telling everyone do this. How do you expect a bunch of random people, all disparate people all over the world, to want to participate in something like picking up litter?
That's a great question.
Well, I asked the great ones here.
I don't think you do expect it.
Huh.
I think you can hope for it. And I think that if your story can create an emotional connection with somebody, and the story is simple and shareable, you've got a shot at converting another person. I'm a big believer in and taking social media aside and the powers that it provides. I'm a big believer in building your story one person at a time. Like our motto is one piece at a time. Because the idea of getting to the scale of 80 million users when you're at 1,000 seems impossible. I feel like focusing just on the person or a group of people right in front of you is a much more manageable task.
And wait, so how did you actually get this started? So you had a good idea.
So here's how literati works. Sorry, I feel like I'm not going to do So you find a piece of litter, and you take a photo of it with Instagram, and you add a hashtag literati, and then you throw away, recycle, or compost the litter. So that's what I started doing. And the first one I ever took a photograph was a cigarette butt in a sidewalk crack, which my daughter likes to call a butt crack photo, which was funny the first 50,000 times. So anyway, I noticed that. So I started taking a couple photographs of litter, and maybe after a week I'd taken 20. And by the way, I've never been like some environmental activist, nor a photographer. So after that couple of days, I noticed two things happening. One, litter suddenly became approachable. And I think it was because of Instagram, frankly. It became sort of, it went from being like, I don't want to touch that, to, oh, there's a cool opportunity.
So people were choosing their filters for litter.
Yeah, exactly.
For cigarette butts.
Yeah, before people, just me, right? I'm the only person doing this. And the next thing I noticed was that at the end of the week, I suddenly had a record of the impact that I was having on the planet. So I was like, wow, that's 20 less things that are on the earth. That's pretty cool. I had no idea what to do with it, but it seemed kind of cool. Back to not having to do what you're doing. So I started telling people. And the first thing I did was I got literati.org, and all I did was build, and I didn't do it because that's another thing. I'm a non-technical code. So, meanwhile, I can't believe how many people can code. If you would have asked that question when I was here, I don't think anybody would have known what we were talking about. Anyway, so we built this photo gallery at literati.org, and it was just, we were reaching into Instagram's database and extracting any photograph that had the literati hashtag, and that's what we were displaying. And that was pretty cool. And all of a sudden, one day, and all the photos were lit up, photographs were taken, and my wife had taken some, I had taken some with a couple of friends, and one day, a shot of a plastic wrapper in the foreground came in, and in the background was the Great Wall of China. And I was like, what the hell just happened? I didn't know it at the time, but my brother-in-law was in China. That's not what's important. What's important is that it gave me this realization that was, wait a minute, while the pictures of Instagram are really cool, there's something way more powerful here, and it's all the data. So from Instagram alone, we can tell who, what, where, and when, because the images are geotagged, timestamps, so we put a map together. And we just dropped pinpoints on where all the photographs were taken. And then all of a sudden, people started tagging what they were picking up. So now it was like Marvel, Starbucks, Snickers, McDonald's. So that was the next realization, which was, what if we could start showcasing the most commonly found brands and product types? And then what if someday we could actually open up conversations with those companies in a creative and collaborative way, not in a confrontational and antagonistic way? You say, listen, your products are being found all over the ground. I'm not saying you're directly responsible, but clearly there's a better way. And that's really what we're going to put on.
And so, what do you think it has been, or I should say, this is your third venture?
Yeah.
Why are you still doing this? It would be so much easier to just get a job than starting a company. No, this is, anyone who wants to create anything has to be a little, it's a little irrational.
It's totally irrational, especially because I'd be getting paid at a job. I think if you, I don't know, I can't not do it. And it's interesting, my first two companies were both, for-profit, we had ideas and we were trying to make money. That was pretty much let me back up. We were trying to have fun and make money and change the world for the better. But with Literati, there's obviously a much greater good at work here, and I sort of have the bug, as I'm sure many of you do. Once you start finding whatever it is that you care about, and that can come in all shapes and sizes, and you can go after it if you know what it is, or it may just hit you over the head, like it did with me. suddenly you can't stop. And now once you start getting feedback from your idea, whether it's from the naysayers who help you become more motivated or from the people who think what you're doing is really cool, that just helps you push on.
How good does it feel when you, how did it feel when you found the first person using literati that was not related to you?
So good. And here's what felt really good about it. So it was somebody in Sydney, and who has become one of the most active members of literati. And what he said to me, his name is Rupert Poser, and what he said to me was, literati is taking my individual action. We said this over email. My individual action of picking up a piece of litter and it's amplifying it and making it more social for the rest of the world. So I know that if I'm picking up something on this side of the world and you're picking up something on that side of the world, we're both contributing to the same greater good. So in a way, literati is starting to unify all these individual actions. And I believe that there's a really interesting potential to build a platform that allow people to understand the impact they're having on the planet. So has anybody heard of the quantified self movement? Right? Everything's being measured.
All the things.
Yeah. How much you sleep, how much you walk, how you walk, what you eat. I think there's an opportunity to do that with how you treat the planet as well. And so that's sort of the direction we're headed.
And how did you find Rupert?
So,
how did that happen?
Because of the digital landfill. So I saw this photograph. Remember, at that point, we were getting like 10 photographs a day. And so I saw a photograph come over, and I saw where it was geotagged, and it was Sydney, and I thought, ooh, where's that?
Really, sorry. How did he discover you all? How did you get those early users?
So I've been asked this question a couple times, and I don't really, so in his particular case, I don't really know. But here's what I can tell you, I think. So one, because Instagram already has a user base of 160 million people, obviously there's virality that is baked into the platform. And we had this unique hashtag that started appearing in lots of different photos. And it was almost subject agnostic, right? So you could have a candy bar, and that would say literati. You could have a cigarette butt, and that would say literati. And you could have, plastic cellophane, and that would say literati. So I think some people started noticing this literati hashtag and wondered what it was. We built a Facebook page pretty early on and just started having fun. I'm kind of of the mindset that if we're not going to have fun doing this, why are we doing it at all? So we would do things like, we do things like caption contests and things like that. So that started attracting some people. And I started reaching out on Twitter, and I think that's how we've started accumulating some early users. But it goes back to what I said earlier. I think our story is pretty simple, and I think it's pretty shareable, and I think this is a problem that affects every single one of us. And it's highly visual, and we're coming at it with a highly visual solution.
How is literati going to take over the world?
One piece at a time. Also, not
You can drop the microphone at that point. What were you going to say?
That was so cool.
That was so good.
What was I going to say?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, we'll leave on such an amazing end.
Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it.
Wow, it is, and you know what I love about it is it hits, when I see people littering in my neighborhood, and it hurts, and the more we can get people even just thinking about the relevance of what they do when they leave a cigarette butt, let alone, a McDonald's bag, the better. So thank you very much, Jeff. I wanted to do some Q&A, is that right? Yes. How much time do I have? 10 minutes? 6 minutes? 15. Oh, that's good. That's it. So, I don't know a proper way to do this. Do we just have people line up with the microphones? Oh, yes. You are excited. All right. All right. Should I answer it now? You already asked me. Well, no, you shouted it in the middle of my talk. I'm sorry, what'd you
So
say?
when Reddit was getting off the ground, it hosted one of the largest child pornography forums, most easily accessed, and #1 on Google for 6 years. Considering porn is one of the largest applications of the internet, in what ways do you think Reddit benefited from hosting these forums? And how do you think Reddit would differ if you had had to change your heart about child pornography versus free speech 6 years ago?
Reddit never hosted child pornography. Thank you.
Lots of links to it, and lots of ways to connect people that email you back and forth.
There, I'm sorry, but that's just not true.
There's still canned fashion police, illegal teens, junk porn. Our jail is the biggest source of
If you,
internet.
I appreciate you at least getting behind the microphone instead of interrupting me. But I feel like I can respond maybe in detail online. But the easy answer is Reddit does not have child pornography on it. Thank you. Okay. Yes, please.
Yeah, hi. I know you've done a lot of talking about so people that happened a few years ago, and now we've had these Snowden revelations, and we're facing new battles on the internet. And I wanted, you talked about being the millennial generation, sort of a generational connection, and I wanted you to talk maybe about some of your thoughts on how this generation is going to impact or not the next 10, 20 years of the internet, and what should we be doing about that?
That's all on you guys. I'm taking all the pressure off myself. It's a really important app. You guys should all download it. I have it on my home screen. It's in my work folder. It's called Contact Congress. And it's a really cool app. Based on your GPS, I kept my phone off because that's not a polite thing to do when you're speaking, or to have it on. It'll, through GPS, tell you right now your 2 senators in your lap. And with a button, you can push it and be in touch. Like the phone will start ringing and you can just talk to a staffer. We should have the same kind of expectations for our government that we do with Kim Kardashian's breakfast, right? We can, and I love her, a fellow Armenian, but she just makes interesting life choices.
As a mom.
Oh, dude, Barayev. What's up, man? Dude, we are everywhere, man. So yes, the onus is on us at the end of the day, right? This is a government that's supposed to be by the people and for the people. What we saw during Sopa Pippa was that we, with phones and emails, could defeat $94 million in lobbying, and that was amazing. And that was a taste of the power that we have always had, but have never necessarily been able to mobilize as easily. So it's about being better citizens. It's about being better connected to the issues we care about. And unfortunately, it's not easy. Unfortunately, there are lots of entrenched lobbying interests, whether it's entertainment or whatever, fill in the blank. And this is not something the internet alone is going to magically solve. But I'm confident. Larry Lessig actually has an amazing book called Republic Lost, if you have not read it. It's a great primer for anyone who wants to do anything to help fix politics. And then maybe with some luck, we'll get April 24th recognized too.
Hopefully. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
I've got 2 quick questions. The first one, if I was going to take some initiative and ask you to talk to me after the show, be my program, would you be willing to do that?
Yes, I'm going to the North Quad. It's only students though. But we're going to make it up to you guys while I do the rest of the Q&A. Oh wait, hold on. Kyle's going to come up here and have some fun with an air cannon. A t-shirt cannon that shoots compressed air. So sorry. This is because not all of you can attend because unfortunately students only. So yes, we will talk. We'll perhaps be holding beverages. And but look, at the end of the day, obviously the Paul Graham story had an amazing impact on our lives. One of the best things you all will learn as founders, doing whatever it is that your mentors, your advisors, are probably wrong most of the time. Right? Even they don't know what they're doing to the extent that you know about the problem you're solving. So get really good at sifting through advice from people, because it's not all going to be good. And the second question?
Hey, I got a few minutes. I'm going to get around. You mind talking after the show?
Yeah, we're off quad. Assuming you're a student or a fake student ID. I'm not asking any questions.
Hey, my question is regarding small empires.
Yeah.
Seeing how it's going with The Verge, and if there's going to be a big gap in it because of the tour.
Well, okay. Thank you for asking. I'm doing this series I'm very proud of on The Verge called Small Empires, which is profiling tech startups in New York, as well as the people who work there and the people who use it. You should see the OK Cupid episode that we just did, which I think is probably one of the best. We have more episodes coming because we already filmed it. I will not be filming it while on this tour, but I am trying to spread it. I would like to open source it in the way that TED sort of opens up the TEDx license, because I've been to Victoria in British Columbia, and I've heard from people as far south as like Orlando, who have all said we have our own startup communities that we want to show off. And because I don't need to be everywhere doing that, we can take the model and say, go run with it. If you want to do a Small Empires Ann Arbor, we'll give you the blueprint. It's only 3 cameras, it's like 5 people, like it can be done. So I hope it spreads, because I don't want these ideas to be locked up, and I don't need to be the one to spread them.
Yeah, you do want to tell us.
Thanks. Thank you. Glad you're watching. You guys are clapping forever. Yeah, I love that.
Hey, so first of all, thank you for answering my question online. Big fans as well.
Sure.
Thanks, After. My question was maybe how is Reddit now different from the vision that you had maybe 5 or 6 years ago when you and Steve were down with Pinterest? Why is that?
Last week, I stumbled on an amazing debate happening entirely in Spanish on a subreddit devoted to satirizing Mexican politics. I had no idea. I mean, my German's pretty good, my Spanish non-existent. Fortunately, Steve had the foresight 2 months into Reddit to know that we had to be a platform like for online communities. Anyone could create a subreddit, including one about satirizing Mexican politics. And he had the foresight to know that this thing would work if and only if it became this kind of platform for online communities. And that's the reality of it is we lucked out on that. And the way it has grown, I mean, there are over 6,000 now active ones, including the aforementioned satirical Mexican politics one. And that's the spirit of where I think a lot of innovation is coming. And in so many of my travels, especially in the developing world, so many online forums are still using janky old PHP software, like PHP BB forums that we'd love to see come on the Reddit platform.
What is the name of that subreddit?
Let me get back to you. I don't, unfortunately, because I don't speak Spanish, I have no recollection of what it actually is. We actually did, if you look on the Reddit blog, we did a full recap entirely in Espanol of all of the Pew people, the Pew polling people did a study. Reddit is the most popular social media platform among Hispanics. 11% of all of them were Facebook, Twitter, suck it, Facebook and Twitter. And so we did this full-on blog post on the whole thing, so it's in there.
Thank you.
Oh wait, is the t-shirt cannon okay? What? Was the t-shirt cannon works? Or are you just priming it? Okay.
I was just going to do it right after.
Is that appropriate? Okay, alright, sorry.
Hello.
We've never done this before.
Okay, my question was, so you said during college you dropped your pre-law path, and in your senior year you went on to pursue and you went on to eventually, obviously, you went on to pursue.
So you're saying you like the name?
I do like that, yes. And then eventually, obviously, you went on to pursue Reddit. So my question was, what were your parents' attitudes toward these actions, and what did they say, and how did you respond to that, and I guess eventually?
My parents are one of my favorite things to talk about. Thank you, plants. No, I mean that. It's funny you guys all laugh. Maybe that's a sign of just how fortunate I was. My parents were absurdly supportive of everything, like unreasonably so. I was a waiter for 2 years at Pizza Hut. My boss, Tony, said I was the best waiter he'd ever had, and he said I should really consider not going to college and going to New York and just becoming a professional waiter. And I told my parents this, because I was really excited. I was like, I'm actually making good money with these tables, like I could do this, I can move to New York. And I don't know what they said after I left the dinner table, but while I was there, my parents were like, well, make a budget, and we'll support you if you want to do it. I mean, obviously when they left my dad, he's the only, he was probably like, there's no way. This kid is going to college. But I really lucked out. My mom, actually, she immigrated. She got a GED, it was her highest level of education. So it was important for them that I went to school. And I think that's part of the reason why I'm not quite Peter Thiel over here with like, forget all the schools, I'll teach like the 40 smartest kids in the country and hell with everyone else. Higher ed has a really, really important role still to play, and I know I'm going so far beyond answering your question. But the good news is, hopefully you'll have supportive people in your lives, whether it's your parents or family or friends, who will be like, all right, cool. Because if not, I will. On Twitter, I'll be like, that's great, I support you.
Sorry, follow up. I guess, what advice do you have to young adults who are trying to pursue something, but maybe the people they care about the most, the people whose opinions they value the most, like they're not in support of their ideal.
This is some next level stuff. I mean, that's all. I mean, I can't tell those people how to live. I mean, at the end of the day, you didn't even. Probably the best advice I ever got from my mom was to not live my life for anyone other than myself. I know that sounds really selfish, but the way that she described it was, don't do. Your mom and dad, I'm talking like her now. We don't know what's best. We think we do. We think we got a pretty good sense of some stuff, but at the end of the day, you need to live your life. So I've been trying to do that best I can, and it's worked out okay. So I don't know. I will support you, and all these people here will, right? Wolverines.
Hey, what's up?
Hello. Nice shirt. Is that Einstein?
It is.
Nice.
So I just listened to the question on Reddit, and I said it was weird. Saying that this might be too soon, but Aaron's death is still something that saddens me till this day. And I was just wondering, since you can't be here, maybe on his behalf, if there is something that, if you want to tell us or share with us about internet entrepreneurship.
Yeah. We knew Aaron through Y Combinator. He was doing another startup. We acquired it, filled out me, and 6 months into that, we worked together for a while there. But I can't even dare to speak for him. The good news is, if there is good news, he wrote so much and produced so much content in the short life that he had that I don't think no one else needs to speak for him. He's doing a fine job still.
Well, thank you for that.
Sure.
First of all, thanks for the shout out.
Oh, sure. That was funny. Yep. Thank you for your enthusiasm about being shouted out. Or shout out it.
So 2 questions. This one's pretty quick. What's your favorite obscure subreddit?
I wish makeup addiction would help me. But they won't even try. Yeah, the makeup addiction is fascinating.
And then for the more obscure question, or not obscure question, more real question, so monetization, Reddit, hasn't really cared too much about monetization for a while. Brent Pig donates a lot of money away. He also open sourced Reddit, by the way, and I've seen open sourced your videos. If entrepreneurship is supposed to be like your way of life, any risk analyst would obviously say you're making the dumbest decision ever. So, how come it seems like, at least from the surface level, money's not that big of an issue as you do all this?
And let's be clear, Hitmonk, the best lesson from Hitmonk was create something with a business model. Or sorry, one of the best lessons from that was create something with a business model from the start. Yes, it looks like I'm doing a very bad job of making money. Obviously selling Reddit was a good thing for me financially, but I have always been trying to weigh my decisions about, let me put it another way. As someone who's experienced, not personally, not myself, but personally, what people actually care about when they are facing their own mortality, it was made abundantly clear to me at a very young age, 22, that people don't really care about stuff. Like no one is ever sitting there thinking about some shit they bought. And I have largely tried to hopefully fill my life and continue to do so with experiences and people who I will have for a very long time. So that's not to say making money is not evil. It's not inherently wrong. I mean, being sustainable is what makes great things thrive and grow and prosper. It helps artists keep making art. It helps go on and so forth. But I don't know. I'm only 30 years old. But that's probably the best lesson that I got when I was 22. So there you go. But again, there's no shame in making money unless you know. I was going to make a banker joke, but I won't do that.
Awesome. Thanks.
Sure.
Hey, so I know you were just named one of the advisors, one of Y Combinator's advisors to the East Coast. And so I think you're in a great position to answer this question. Which tech scene are you most excited about right now, personally? San Francisco versus New York, and why? And what are your favorite 3 companies right now in New York?
New York, because it's still up and coming, and because when I ride the subway, I look around and I know that most of these people do not give a fuck about my startup. And you can say that about a lot of places that are not Silicon Valley. It is a wonderful place, but it is ultimately largely a monoculture where everyone, you can't go to breakfast out here and pitch. And that's a great place to dive into. But why I'm so bullish on New York is because, well, one, I was born there, so I'm a little biased. But just having so much diversity, so much size, whether it's in people diversity or in industry diversity, as the internet continues to affect things, I want to be in a place that has such richness as opposed to one where it's easier to fall into a trap where you're solving problems just for other hipsters with startups. But that said, I mean, the Bay is still an amazing place to do a startup. And I think the reason why Combinator is there and doing so well is because if you're going to inject some founders, if you're going to tell a founder, hey, spend 3 months, just come here, make all the connections, get inspired, and then take investor money and go back, like, that's a good proposition. And more startups are choosing to do that, whether they're coming back to the East Coast or whether they're coming to the Heartland. I mean, Farm Logs actually has an office here, and that's a YC startup. But more and more you're seeing companies that are making a decision that is, not staying in the valley, and that's absolutely doable. They do have better burritos than we do, though. I will give them that. And the favorite big startups in New York right now, the ones I probably talk about the most that I'm also not invested in, would be Kickstarter, Etsy, what's another one? Oh man. OkCupid, just because I did that really great. I read that the smaller parts of it, you have to see the couple we interviewed are the most romantic couple. It's like, I hope it's the gateway for a bunch of people to be like, yeah, okay, I'll try on anything. Because this couple will make you all feel terrible. I guarantee you will feel like an inferior significant other. I did. Yeah. There you go.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. We're going to have to do speed mode? Okay. And look, I'm going to come all the North Quad and we'll keep talking.
Okay. Knowing it's going to be a North
Yes.
student, I'm told I'm one-on-one. What is too long for that?
Ashley's at 10:30. That is a bar, I'm told. Wait, can we do one more? Or we? Okay, I'm sorry. We'll do one more. I promise I'm not gonna leave. We'll keep talking, but okay, you're the last one.
You told us not to fear failure. But I feel like our educational system teaches us to fear failure. Mm-hmm. Given this, how do you think our education system needs to be different?
Wow. I wrote, there's an op-ed that I wrote for Slate which kind of addresses this. I think Sir Ken Robinson has some amazing stuff. You can watch his TED Talks, read his book. These guys are like scholars on it. The TLDR would be a system that is more geared around doing stuff and trying stuff than just learning it and memorizing it and repeating it. And I don't know. That's above my pay grade. But I think that's a glimpse of it.